Ladies and gentlemen, why do we settle for mediocrity when we are born with a spark of greatness? Why do we allow fear, self-doubt, and limiting beliefs to define us? Today we are going to uncover the silent destroyers of your power, the subtle ways weakness creeps into your life, disguising itself as comfort, as excuses, as avoidance. This message is for those tired of playing small, who are ready to reclaim their divine strength and reject weakness in every form it tries to take. There is a silent war taking place within each of us, a war between who we are and who we are meant to be. Weakness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers when you hesitate to speak up, when you avoid the hard conversation, when you delay the dream for someday. Weakness is not only about physical fragility, it's a mindset, a pattern of surrender, a lifestyle of resignation. And if we're not aware, it becomes the author of our life story. But not today. Today is an invitation to rise, to look weakness in the eye and say, "You will not write my story." This is the beginning of a return, not to what you've been told you are, but to what you've always been, strong, eternal, unbreakable at the core. When we look closely at our lives, we begin to notice something subtle but incredibly profound. Much of what we call circumstance is actually self-permission. We tell ourselves stories that seem so real, so convincing, that we forget we are the authors of them. We forget that what we claim as external reality is often a mirror of internal agreement. The idea that weakness is something that happens to us, that it arrives like weather we cannot control, is perhaps one of the most damaging illusions we adopt. We weren't born weak. Look at a child learning to walk. They fall over and over again. They bruise, they stumble, they cry, but they get back up. They never say, maybe walking just isn't for me. They don't weigh themselves down with fear of failure or embarrassment. That kind of weakness isn't built in. It's taught. It's layered onto us through repetition, through conditioning, through watching others who have forgotten their own strength. And as we grow, we mistake those layers for identity. But weakness is not who we are. It is who we temporarily become when we believe the story that we are limited. The moment you say, "I can't," you make a choice. You may not realize it at the time because it feels like fact, but every excuse, every avoidance is a decision. When you say, "I don't have time," what you're really saying is, "This isn't important enough to make time for." When you say, "I'm too tired," you are choosing to remain at the mercy of energy rather than becoming the master of it. "I'm not talented enough" is not an observation. It is a sentence, both grammatically and existentially. We tend to believe weakness is involuntary, that we are reacting to life, but often we are retreating from life. We are surrendering, not in the spiritual sense of release, but in the reactive sense of giving up before trying. What would happen if we questioned every excuse we've adopted? What if we looked at every limitation and asked, who taught me that? Where did I first believe that? Is that actually true, or have I just repeated it long enough to accept it as truth? The truth is, most of what holds us back has nothing to do with the outer world. It has to do with what we have accepted as unchangeable. But anything accepted can also be rejected. And rejecting weakness begins with the awareness that it's not an external force. It's a veil made from years of quiet decisions to believe in less than what we truly are. It's tempting to wait for circumstances to change before we change our beliefs, to wait for more money, more support, more opportunity before we act. But in doing so, we give our power away. We say, "I will believe in my strength once life proves it to me," instead of declaring, "I choose my strength first," and watch life rearrange itself accordingly. This is the creative process reversed. Strength is never the outcome of comfort. It is the foundation that builds miracles. We were taught to be realistic, to keep our expectations low, to avoid disappointment. But realism, when filtered through fear, becomes resignation. We lower our standards and call it maturity. We settle and call it practicality. And slowly, quietly, we drift into a life where weakness is not only tolerated, but normalized. And yet, even in that state, there is a voice within that whispers, "This is not who you are. You are not here to merely cope. You are here to create, to contribute, to rise, to evolve." The first act of rejecting weakness is to reclaim your authorship. You do not need a grand gesture to begin. You only need a moment of honesty, one moment where you look at an excuse you've been using, maybe for years, and ask yourself if it still serves you. Ask yourself if it brings you peace, if it opens doors, if it honors your soul. If it doesn't, then it's not the truth. It's just a habit in the form of a thought. The power of that recognition is immense, because once you see that your limitations are not facts but agreements, you realize they can be renegotiated. You can return them to the source they came from. You can forgive the past version of yourself who needed those beliefs to feel safe, but you don't need to carry them forward. Rejecting weakness doesn't mean you never feel tired or afraid or uncertain. It means you stop using those feelings as a justification to stay stuck. You begin to observe them instead of obeying them. You learn to sit with discomfort without being ruled by it. You rise, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned with your nature. There is no strength more lasting than the strength that arises from truth. Not truth borrowed from others, but truth revealed through experience, through showing up when it's hard, through pushing back when the world wants you to shrink, through refusing to adopt the identity of victimhood. Weakness tells you to wait. Strength whispers, now. And so, when you catch yourself saying, "I can't," stop. Replace it with, "I choose not to." Notice how the responsibility returns to you. Notice how your words no longer betray your power, but remind you of it. That is the shift. That is the beginning of everything, because weakness cannot survive in the presence of awareness. Once you see it for what it is, it loses its grip. Once you name it, you reclaim yourself. You are no longer the passive receiver of life. You are its conscious architect. And the blueprint begins with the refusal to live one more moment accepting weakness as your reality. Words are not merely sounds. They are living instruments that shape our perception, define our identity, and influence the direction of our lives. Every time you speak, you are either reinforcing your limitations or reclaiming your power. The language you use is not just communication, it's creation. When you speak the language of weakness, you are unknowingly constructing invisible walls around your potential. The simple phrases that pass your lips, "I can't," "It's too hard," "I don't have what it takes," might seem harmless, but they are the bricks in the prison you're building around yourself. Weakness doesn't arrive all at once. It trickles in through habits of speech. It sneaks in through idle expressions of defeat. At first it's small, a shrug, a sigh, a quiet maybe someday, but these words carry weight, and over time they accumulate. They become familiar. They start to feel like truth. And before long, you're not just speaking them, you are living them. Your vocabulary becomes your reality. Excuses are the dialect of the disempowered. They sound logical, they sound reasonable, but they are dangerous precisely because they feel so convincing. When you say, I'm just not good with people. You are not describing a moment. You are accepting a lifelong limitation. When you say, that's just not who I am, you are confusing your current comfort zone with your actual identity. When you say, I've always been this way, you are handing your power to the past. You are denying yourself the possibility of transformation. Language is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. What you continually say to yourself and others determines what becomes manifest in your experience. If you speak from weakness, you energize it. If you speak from strength, even before you feel it, you activate it. This is not just positive thinking, it is alignment with truth, because the deepest truth of your being is not weakness. It is power, love, presence, and creativity. You have to become conscious of the words you casually use. Pay attention to the statements you repeat. I'm tired. I can't afford it. I never get a break. These may feel like accurate descriptions of your moment, but are they declarations you want your future to align with? Because every word is an instruction to your subconscious. Every phrase you repeat is planting seeds in the soil of your mind, and whatever you plant, you will harvest. When you begin to reject the vocabulary of limitation, you awaken a new kind of awareness. You start to hear the voices in your head not as truth tellers, but as echoes of past fear, insecurity, or inherited patterns, and in that awareness you gain the power to choose again. Instead of I can't do this, you say I'm learning to do this. Instead of this is too much for me, you say this is stretching me into something greater. Instead of I'm stuck, you say I'm in the middle of change. The shift in language is subtle, but the effect is profound. This new language doesn't require you to lie to yourself. It simply invites you to speak from possibility, not limitation. It encourages you to describe your life not as it's always been, but as it's capable of becoming. Weakness asks you to speak from your wounds. Strength invites you to speak from your wisdom. And your words, whether you realize it or not, are always choosing one or the other. Excuses often masquerade as facts. I don't have enough time is one of the most common lies we tell ourselves. Time is not the issue. Priority is. You always have time for what matters. The question is not whether you have enough time, it's whether you value your growth enough to claim your time back. I'm not ready is another illusion. Readiness is rarely a feeling, it is a decision. Most of the time we become ready by taking the first step, not by waiting for some inner permission slip that may never come. Weakness will always provide you with reasons to stay where you are. It will tell you it's too late, that you've made too many mistakes, that other people have it easier. It will offer you 1,000 justifications, but none of them are rooted in your truth. Your truth is that you are an infinite being, capable of renewal at any moment. And that moment begins when you stop lending your voice to doubt and begin using your voice to declare your potential. There is an energy to every sentence you speak. Some sentences deplete you, others uplift you. Begin to listen not just to what you're saying, but how it feels in your body when you say it. Do you feel smaller or stronger? Do you feel contracted or expanded? Do your words give you permission to grow or permission to hide? That feeling is your guidance system. It is always leading you back to alignment with who you really are. To reject the language of weakness, you don't need to be loud. You don't need to shout affirmations or recite mantras in front of a mirror. You simply need to speak from a place of sincerity and power. A quiet but steady voice that says, I choose something greater for myself. A voice that refuses to narrate a life of fear. A voice that honors the divine force moving through you by not using words to sabotage it. Language is choice. Vocabulary is identity. What you say today becomes the pattern you live tomorrow. And the good news is this: you can change your language right now. You can decide in this very moment that weakness will no longer speak through you, that excuses will no longer define your path, that every word from this day forward will reflect the truth of who you are, not the fear of who you've been pretending to be. There is a deceptive kind of safety that comes wrapped in comfort. It feels like peace, but it's a counterfeit version of it. It feels like rest, but over time, it becomes stagnation. We have been conditioned to chase comfort, to make it our goal, to design our lives around it, to treat discomfort like a threat. But the very thing we are trained to avoid is often the only doorway to our evolution. Comfort has never created a masterpiece. It has never built inner strength. It has never birthed transformation. And when comfort becomes your default, weakness quietly takes root. Comfort doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers when you stay silent instead of speaking your truth. It whispers when you procrastinate the work that matters. It whispers when you avoid making the decision that could change everything. And those whispers lull you into a sleepwalking life. You begin to confuse staying still with staying safe. You forget that the soul was not made for stillness. It was made for expansion. And expansion always begins with the willingness to walk into the unfamiliar. Weakness thrives in the spaces where discomfort is avoided. It grows in the repetition of ease, in the refusal to stretch, in the resistance to change. It shows up as hesitation, as apathy, as rationalization, and slowly, without realizing it, we shrink, not physically but spiritually. We stop trying new things. We stop having difficult conversations. We stop risking rejection, failure, uncertainty, and while the outer world might look stable, something inside begins to decay, not because it is broken, but because it is unused. Every strength you admire in another person was forged in the furnace of discomfort. Every quality you long to embody, courage, resilience, clarity, presence, was shaped in a space where comfort was not the goal. Growth is not a smooth road. It is uneven, unpredictable, and often uncomfortable. But the discomfort is not punishment. It is proof that you are not repeating old patterns, proof that you are no longer tolerating mediocrity, proof that you are stepping into something more authentic, more aligned, more powerful. The human being, when attuned to the source of life, is not fragile. You are not here to tiptoe through existence hoping nothing disturbs your peace. You are here to evolve, to stretch, to awaken. And every evolution requires shedding, the shedding of old beliefs, outdated identities, worn-out attachments. Shedding is not comfortable. It never has been, but it is necessary. Just as a snake must outgrow its skin, you must outgrow your past limitations. And that process, though uncomfortable, is sacred. Comfort often comes disguised as self-care, but true self-care is not always warm baths and soothing words. Sometimes it is accountability, sometimes it is discipline, sometimes it is saying no when you're used to pleasing everyone, sometimes it is waking up early, doing the hard thing, facing the truth you've been avoiding. Discomfort doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It often means you're finally facing the right direction. The question is not whether it feels easy, but whether it feels real. Weakness will always offer you the illusion of rest. It will say, "You've done enough. You're fine where you are. Why push yourself?" But those questions are not rooted in love. They are rooted in fear. The fear of failure, the fear of being seen, the fear of not being good enough. But here's the truth. There is nothing more exhausting than suppressing your potential. Nothing more draining than pretending to be less than you are. True rest comes not from avoiding the fire, but from walking through it and discovering that it could not consume you. When you learn to welcome discomfort, not chase it recklessly, but invite it consciously, you step into a rare kind of power. You stop asking, "How can I make this easier?" and begin asking, "Who can I become through this?" You stop seeking to escape challenges and start using them as mirrors, each one reflecting a part of you that's ready to grow. This shift changes everything, because now discomfort is no longer the enemy. It's the messenger, and you begin to listen. There's a divine intelligence in discomfort. It arrives when it's time to grow. It visits when it's time to let go. It surrounds you when the old ways no longer serve the new you. And when you resist it, you prolong your evolution. You cling to what's familiar, even if it no longer fits. But when you lean in, when you allow discomfort to teach you, to guide you, to strip away what's false, you find something deeper than relief. You find freedom. Strength is not found in the absence of pressure. It is found in your relationship with pressure. Do you run from it, or do you rise within it? Every time you stay committed to your vision, even when it's hard, you're building inner muscles. Every time you keep going despite fear, doubt, fatigue, you're rewriting your identity. And identity is not built through intention alone. It is built through action, through showing up when it's inconvenient, through being honest when it's easier to pretend, through trusting that the discomfort is temporary, but the transformation is eternal. Comfort tells you that tomorrow is a better time, that you need more preparation, more validation, more certainty. But growth whispers something very different. It says, start now. Begin messy. You're already enough. It doesn't wait for the conditions to be perfect. It trusts that the perfection is in the process itself, and in that process, you become someone you never imagined possible. There is a deep peace that emerges when you stop resisting discomfort and begin honoring it. You stop viewing difficulty as punishment and begin seeing it as sacred instruction. You stop asking for easy answers and start receiving wise questions. And the most important question of all becomes, what am I willing to feel in order to become who I truly am? There is a place within you that has never been touched by fear, never been broken by circumstance, never been reduced by failure. It is not something you need to build, find, or achieve. It is something you need to remember. Your true nature is not weakness. It is strength. It is clarity. It is eternal. But we live in a world that trains us to forget this. From the moment we are born, we are handed labels, roles, rules, and limitations. And over time, we begin to confuse who we truly are with who we've been taught to be. The essence of who you are does not need to be created. It simply needs to be revealed. Strength is not something you chase. It is something you allow. And you allow it by letting go of what you are not. You let go of the stories that say you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready. You let go of the comparisons, the judgments, the conditions. You return gently and courageously to the awareness that you are already whole. Weakness is not your default. It is your conditioning. It is the result of years of living from the outside in, years of seeking approval, avoiding rejection, chasing safety in the form of acceptance. But safety at the expense of your truth is not security, it is bondage, and your soul knows it. That is why you feel restless, even when life appears to be fine. That is why you feel a quiet ache in moments of stillness, not because something is missing, but because something is waiting for you to return to it. Your true nature is not small. It is expansive. It is vast. It is the same creative intelligence that spins galaxies, grows forests, and forms oceans. That force lives in you. It breathes through you. It guides you when your mind is quiet enough to listen. You are not separate from that power. You are an expression of it, and when you align with it, weakness loses its grip, because you're no longer trying to be strong. You are simply being what you already are. We often think of strength as something hard, rigid, aggressive, but true strength is soft, open, unshakable because it flows. It does not force, it allows. It does not dominate, it radiates. It does not pretend, it simply is. The oak tree does not need to convince the wind of its strength. It stands rooted not because it resists the storm, but because it knows who it is beneath the storm. And you too are meant to stand like that, not through tension, but through truth. Returning to your true nature requires unlearning. It requires peeling away the layers of false identity. You are not your job. You are not your income. You are not your past. You are not your achievements or your failures. You are the one who experiences all of these, but you are not defined by them. The moment you stop identifying with your temporary experiences, you begin to remember your eternal self. And that remembrance is the birthplace of real strength. So many of us live in the performance of strength, appearing confident, composed, successful, while quietly carrying the weight of unhealed wounds, self-doubt, and fear of being seen. But your real power comes not from the mask, but from the willingness to take it off, to stand in your vulnerability, your truth, your naked soul, and say, "This is who I am, this is where I am, and from here I choose to rise." The return to strength is not dramatic. It is quiet, inward, sacred. It is the moment you stop arguing for your limitations. It is the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. It is the moment you listen to your intuition instead of your conditioning. You will know when you are returning to your true nature, because it will feel like peace, not the absence of challenge, but the presence of alignment. Your inner strength does not need to be loud. It does not need to prove itself. It does not need applause. It simply needs to be honored. It needs space to emerge, and it does so when you stop asking the world for permission to be powerful. The universe is not waiting for you to earn your worth. Sometimes we look at others and say, they are so strong, as if strength were reserved for the few. But what you see in others is simply what you have forgotten in yourself. Every time you admire courage, resilience, grace, or wisdom, it's because some part of you already holds that quality. You would not recognize it if it were not already within you. Admiration is not about lacking, it is about remembering. Returning to your true nature requires silence, not just external, but internal. The kind of silence that allows you to hear the truth beneath the noise. The silence that reminds you of your connection to something larger than this moment, larger than this struggle. That silence will not make you weak. It will remind you of your source. And once you've touched that source, even briefly, weakness begins to dissolve, because you now see that strength is not something to acquire, it's something to come home to. You are not lost, you are layered, and each moment of awareness is an invitation to peel back what you are not, to let go of the lies that say you are broken, to set down the burdens that were never yours to carry. The more you release, the lighter you become. The lighter you become, the stronger you feel. And in that lightness, you begin to rise, not in defiance of life's weight, but in partnership with it. Every moment of your life is a conversation between who you think you are and who you truly are. Weakness whispers in the voice of doubt, fear, and hesitation, not because it is your nature, but because it has become your habit. And yet beyond those whispers lies a deeper voice, quiet but unwavering, that keeps calling you to rise. It reminds you that you were never made to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's vision of what is safe. You were made to stretch, to evolve, to awaken to the full expression of your soul. To reject weakness in any form is not to deny your humanity. It is to honor your divinity. It is to step out of the identity that clings to stories of not enough and step into the awareness that you are connected to something eternal. It is to stop asking for ease and start seeking alignment. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. You do not need to fix yourself. You need only to stop abandoning yourself. And in doing so, you will no longer chase strength. You will simply live as it.